This is
Playing the
Steve
intro.
Downs, the voice of Master Chief, Spartan 117. Welcome to Quality Time, the KO Koala Entertainment Podcast. Anthony and Skylar will take it from here. Master Chief, out.
Hello and welcome to Koalatea Time, the KO Koala Entertainment Podcast. I'm Skylar Sokol.
And I am Anthony Nicolosi. That's me singing the Elden Ring theme.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
It's Elden Ring Day, everyone. It got announced today, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Actually, in fact, it probably doesn't relate to Elden Ring almost at all because we're going to talk instead about a game revealed a few days ago, Battlefield 6. Battlefield 2042. And that's because, Anthony, they are doing a pretty strange business model. Something unexpected.
That Elden Ring would never do.
That Elden Ring would never dare to do. And what that is we have no single player in the game. No single player at all. Solely multiplayer. I mean, we've got games like that, Rocket League, whatever. But guess how much it costs? And by guess, I mean tell the boys.
It's probably only 20, right?
Or like 40, maybe?
Oh, maybe. But, okay, 60 max, right?
Right. Yeah, no way, because it's not like a fully contented.
It's fucking $70. It's $70. Multiplayer only $70. And I think the real kind of weirdness is the fact that you know that shit's going to be microtransactioned out the butt. You know, they're going to have some kind of like additional DLC things that...
This shit's EA, dude. It's EA. You know you're about to get like 400 gun skins.
No, and like I think last week, Andrew Wilson, the CEO of EA, had this interview with, I can't remember, I think it was Fortune, and he... Some of the mental gymnastics on fucking microtransactions, man.
Really,
like,
was it funny?
It was like, you know, people are concerned that this is like manipulating players into like spending too much or whatever. And he's like, well, we believe in giving the player options, you know, and like, and this is supporting their freedom to blah, 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 blah. It's like, God, so cringe listen to that. But,
no.
Anyway, what do you expect? So now here's I think we just heard our immediate reaction to the
it's a little silly. I mean, I can foresee a game whose multiplayer is good enough to be worth $70, but I would never expect any company to sell that game for $70. Like now, Rocket League, for example, right? Like, that has enough content to be sold for $70, but why? Sell it for 20 and then get your microtransactions on and do what Rocket League did, and it worked great.
Well, the thing that's most curious to me is the fact that with a lot of times a campaign being bundled inside, it helps drive the value proposition a little bit, right? You've got this experience that professional level designers carefully crafted for you to experience, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's so many people we know. Like, I actually just had this conversation with a coworker at work about how they play Call of Duty and Battlefield. They had in the past played those games mainly just for the campaign, right? Being a Halo person, I know people who mainly just play Halo for the campaign as well. So I think one question about this is like, is a multiplayer experience worth just 70? You said Rocket League, some could be, and I agree with your statement on there. The subsequent one is, though, in this day and age, with all of these multiplayers being either like free to play or really low barrier to entry.
We live in an age where multiplayer games are free. Like, many huge multiplayer games are free. Like, it's crazy to say that you're going to price a AAA full-price multiplayer-only game.
Yeah, like I'm thinking about the shooters right now. Call of Duty Warzone is free,
Fortnite,
but I think
free.
those are battle royales. I think though the rest of Call of Duty's multiplayer is part of the paid pack, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's kind of like they're sort of just pulling now. Actually, what I was gonna say is they're just kind of stuck in that AAA holiday season Q4. $70. We need a $70 game out there. Whatever.
This is EA, right? They're like the most notorious company for being stuck in the AAA mindset of any company.
Right.
They just want their players to experience a sense of pride and accomplishment, and the only way they can do that is if you pay $70. Yeah.
Yes, of course. That's a $70 experience. So now, what if though you could say EA Play currently is on Game Pass, right?
Yep.
So maybe what they're thinking is we know this is going to be on Game Pass. So on Game Pass, we need to implement monetization schemes as if this game were free for those Game Pass customers. And so the reason why we sell it at 70 really is for that the non-Game Pass retail play. You know what I mean?
The problem, though, is that's like a very Microsoft-centric mindset, right? This game's coming out on PlayStation, right? This game's coming out on on PC. Like, those aren't the big Game Pass markets, so that would be. I feel like that can't be the only answer, right? Because otherwise, and maybe it is. Maybe they have like some secret deal because EA and Game Pass are working together. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they're like, the Game Pass market is what we really care about, and for everyone else, let's just get our money's worth and get out, kind of thing, or something.
Yeah. No, yeah. So, I agree. That's true. That could be interesting. They haven't announced anything surrounding like if it's going to launch day and date on Game Pass as well. If it's going to even be on Game Pass, technically, they haven't said. But because EA plays there, and the fact that it's being sold at 70, that's what some people are speculating. Damn it.
Now, let me just say, so we're already in an age where games got increased to $70 this generation, right?
Right.
And a lot of people were already upset about that. Granted, we've had previous conversations that we tried to demonstrate why $70 is kind of reasonable and not crazy and it isn't that big a deal.
Right.
But that's $70 for what everyone would normally expect to be a $70 game. That's either a like very long form, very high quality single player game with no multiplayer, or a single player multiplayer combo game. I don't know if we've ever seen a multiplayer only game sold at that kind of price. Like, did we see any? Can you think of any multiplayer only games sold at the $60 price range last generation? Nothing's coming to the top of my head.
Like, the last thing I can think of wasn't Titanfall 1 $60? That was in 2014.
Titanfall has a campaign.
2 did.
Did 1 not?
But I don't remember if Titanfall 1 was a full 60. It might have been 40. For some reason in my head, I'm thinking it was 40.
Huh.
But that's the last one I can really think of that was at that full AAA price point with only multiplayer.
Yeah, same. That's all I can think of as well. So, actually, well, I mean, fighting games kind of count. There's but most of these recent fighting games have had enough single player content that I would argue that they're not solely multiplayer releases. So I don't know if that even counts.
Yeah, I cannot think of one. We have some dash in chat saying DN did, but do you know what DN is?
No, I don't know why you're even bringing this up. It could be yep. I'm not an idiot. I don't bring this shit up, but dash just D's nuts the fucked out of Anthony.
That's so fucking funny. If you're listening and you missed this live,
Anthony.
we stream these episodes live on Twitch, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Most of the time on Monday. We do have an episode next Monday. And you miss.
This is how you know Anthony has kids and I don't, because he falls for shit like this.
Drive comes with an entire anime series. Nobody was saying. You just mentioned that.
Yeah. So fighting games recently have pushed more for single player. So that's not even a good example. So no, really, the reality is no. This is going to be did Star Wars Battlefront 2 have a single player?
Oh, that's interesting. I think it did.
I thought it did too. So I really do think this is the first time anyone's doing this. Is this confirmed? This is confirmed, right? That it's multiplayer only? Like, surely confirmed?
Yep.
Interesting.
Now, they said inside of the multiplayer experiences, there are, how can I say? There are narrative things interwoven. I'm not familiar with how Battlefront has done this in the past, but somebody in Discord said they have done this before. That somehow there's narrative elements interwoven into the multiplayer. My guess, though, I don't know. What I think in my head is like, it can't be that. How profound and substantial can you get when it's a dynamic multiplayer experience like that? Is it just like
100%? Yeah.
You know, there's things scattered throughout these, because I mean, Battlefield does have fucking huge maps, but like, are there things scattered throughout that you can find?
I mean, what I can think
audio
of is
logs.
In the previous Battlefields, I've never seen any audio logs or anything like that, but I could be wrong. But in the maps, there is like a story each map tells. Like over the course of a match, the map changes and evolves, and maybe those like events, you could tie them between the maps, and there'll be some sort of overarching like idea of what's happening to the world. But it doesn't seem like it could be that detailed, right? That's like a meta narrative that is definitely not replacing single player narrative content, right?
Yeah. Now, how about this? This is the question I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Let's imagine EA is actually good guy EA. The good guy EA that Andrew Wilson paints a picture of, okay? Imagine that it's a $70 multiplayer game, but they promise and actually adhere to never releasing any kind of microtransactional stuff, DLC packs even. Like, it's just $70 and that's it forever. Would you prefer that over like some of these free-to-play models and etc.?
I don't know if I would prefer it, right? I think the free-to-play models work well because they lower the barrier of entry for people to play the games, and then if you want to pay for all the extra shit, you can. You know? I think that's a way better model, and that's why they've been so popular lately. Because they give you the best chance at the largest player base and making the most players happy, and generally, you know? Like... I am lucky that I can afford that kind of stuff, right? That I can afford a $70 game and not worry about it. But like a lot of people can't, and this free-to-play game would let them play the new Battlefield without having to commit $70 just if they want the base level content and none of the extra stuff, you know?
Yeah. Conversely, let's think of it this way. Conversely, there are games that do release, including, for example, soon to release Halo Infinite. We'll have the whole entire multiplayer suite for Halo Infinite is free, and the campaign is paid, and the single player stuff is paid. Now, if you think about it from the amount of hours you're going to play it, I would say that generally speaking, a person who is going to buy the $70 Battlefield is going to put more hours into it than the average person who buys the Halo campaign, which is just the Halo campaign.
Of course, yeah. And that's sort of an expectation of multiplayer games, is that you get a lot more hours out of them, right?
Yet somehow we're more okay. I feel like the market's has been conditioned to be more okay with the like, oh, it's a single player experience. You know what I mean? And that's okay.
Yeah.
Even though, it's a bit of a fallacy if you just look at it from the amount of time you're going to be spending on it.
Yeah, but I mean, the reality of games and playing games is that the amount of time you spend on a game does not determine the game's value, right?
Yeah.
It also doesn't determine the amount of work that went into that part of the game.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think that's
in general, the single player stories end up being a lot more expensive to develop and produce. And so they probably need to make their money back on those more than the multiplayer, even though the multiplayer is a huge effort, obviously. But I guarantee you Halo spent way more money making the single player part.
Yeah. Without knowing the details on that, and also the long-term costs of, maintaining a multiplayer environment too, if you were to put it into that equation, I'm not sure how that would shake out. I think it's interesting that this recently Biomutant came out, and a lot of the reviews I saw regarding Biomutant were that they felt that the amount of gameplay from a time and to some extent quality perspective didn't feel justified at the full $60 or $70 price tag, and that if that price tag was different, they feel like they would have perceived the game much more favorably.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I mean, what I
Sorry.
read was that a lot of the quests were repetitive and sort of similar, and there wasn't enough gameplay variety to justify the price point. Because I didn't read that much about it not being long enough, but yeah.
Yeah, just to say, it's the discussion surrounding how the correlation between the amount of hours invested in these games and their monetary price, the correlation between hours and stuff is so it's clearly not, like, I don't know, consistent even across different modes of games, you know?
No,
So,
totally. And I feel like there are people who you would be like, "Hey, you paid $15 for Rocket League. Would you have paid $100 for it?" And I guarantee you, most people would say no. A lot of people
mhm,
would say no, even if you showed them that they got like easily way more than $100 worth of time out of that game. If they consider like a 12-hour $60 game worth it, you show them their Rocket League, and you're like, this game's worth like $5,000 to you,
yeah.
and they're like, well, it is a weird perception. I agree. I feel like there's an expectation from multiplayer games that you're just getting way more hours to monetary value than single player games.
Well, that's one thing. Do you think the reason, though, why we're okay with it is because somehow the multiplayer experiences feel less, I don't know, substantial than these single player experiences? That somehow the single player stories, campaigns, generally speaking, hit something just deeper and more significant that we, generally speaking, it's a spectrum, but generally speaking, feel like is more valuable or worthwhile to
I don't know
experience?
about that, but I think that maybe it's just like a perception of connecting it to movies and other forms of media that makes it like we're used to paying money for that stuff. So maybe like, because a single player narrative game like competes with a movie and with TV and
Mhm.
whatever, right? And so maybe that gives it more justification for value, whereas the multiplayer experience is a very standalone thing. There's not really other activities that match it except for maybe like sports and stuff, but like so maybe it's hard to perceive value for those things because we don't have very many things to compare them to. You know what I mean? For multiplayer
Yeah.
experiences.
Well, and the other thing is, as you were saying that, I was thinking like the markets for the target audiences for these kinds of experience differ greatly. Like you were
Totally.
talking of the even just the anecdotal example, granted, of a coworker I mentioned earlier. That's a person who's north of 30 years old, has, like you said before, no problem on the financial like requirements for entering into that experience. Like they can handle the price, um, and they don't want to play the multiplayer. They want just the amount of time they have available in their lives. They can only designate a small slot for a single player experience. Like they want that, you
Sure.
know. In fact, like that's something I've said before. I wish like more games were these like shorter. I can play it on a weekend digestible sizes because that's all I want to commit to them. You know what I mean?
No, sure, and I feel you on that too. There's a game. What game was it that I was looking into? I can't remember. Maybe it was Ratchet and Clank.
Oh, okay.
I'm having trouble remembering. But Sean and I were looking into a game where the developer in an interview said they were asking about the length, and the developer was like, well, I can't talk about the specific length. It depends on how much side stuff you do or whatever. But our goal was for you to be able to finish it in a weekend. And so to me, that means like 6 to 8 hours, right?
Ish, yeah,
Is like a
maybe
pretty
to
good weekend
even to
game.
12. Yeah.
I mean, 12 is 4 hours a day. Counting
I
Friday,
guess that's
that's
true.
pretty
Yeah,
long, right?
it's just pretty long. Yeah.
Right. So
Six
like
to
I
eight.
feel like 6 to 8 for like just a casual weekend is pretty reasonable. And honestly, that's like my for me optimal game length. Like 6 to 8
Yep.
hours. Get out of my life after that. That's fine with me. So, but there
Yep.
are tons of people who don't feel that way at all, right? And
Yeah, in fact, yeah, just on that point, we asked our Instagram community one time and also again talking about target audiences, our Instagram community, especially the part of the community that engages with us most heavily, like on story polls and stuff, skews towards for young people and especially young men, between like the ages of 13 and 21. You know what I mean? And those people said, to your point, they actually preferred, like they were looking for a game to have hundreds of hours of
right,
gameplay. You know what I mean?
right. Well, and I mean, when you have school and some homework and all your other free time you can spend playing games if you want to, of course. Like, why would you not? Because then you can really get into the meat of the experience, right? But I'm here like, no, I want like a meaty 8-hour experience that I can then be done with and not have to feel the pressure that I need to keep playing the next weekend or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Josh, our third developer's in chat saying he likes 30 plus hours in a single player experience.
Yeah.
He must have been conditioned towards the Eastern games, like, because I feel like that doesn't happen a lot in like the AAA Western
No, not at
game
all. It's
space.
definitely a more Japan style game
Yeah.
philosophy.
But anyway, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't have anything. You're good.
I was just going to say it will be curious. Maybe they also have some kind of additional. For example, if Game Pass goes the Luna route of like you just offer bundles for certain publishers and
Right.
whatever,
Yeah.
you could theoretically get into, what EA is thinking in their head is like people are going to be able to subscribe to the EA Game Pass bundle for $3 to $5 a month. And God, I forgot the last part, but meaning there's some things we don't know yet.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, right, is that sort of model was like the original TV model. Like you bought different bundles of channels, and we've actually moved away from that in the TV space towards these like Omega aggregate services, right? And so it'll be interesting to see if that really does work with Game Pass, because I felt like those bundly kind of ideas are very unpopular. I don't think people like that.
Then the other problem, I think managing it is kind of annoying.
Totally.
Right? Like managing the bundles I'm subscribed for isn't something that people. It's
You don't want to deal with that. You just want to pay monthly and get all the stuff you want, and not like click on Battlefield and it'll be like, now you need to add the EA bundle, which is actually already the case, right? You have to add EA to Game Pass, right? Or some special part of EA or something. I don't know.
It could be that there's something inside of EA Play that is special to them. For Game Pass, EA Play is integrated. Like there is no differentiator like that.
Oh, okay.
The only differentiator that Game Pass has is like if you want the PC add-on or not, kind of a thing.
Right.
All right. Well,
yeah.
Interesting.
Do we have any patron questions?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We have actually a few, but Dash, who's in chat right now, asked a question that I think he just asked one yesterday that maybe
will take precedent over the other ones, and then we'll come back.
Yes.
I don't see any new.
Oh,
I see it. Okay.
So he asked. You know what? This is not the one I think he asked. Hold on. Let me find it.
You're good.
But Dash asking all kinds of questions. For those who are listening, our patrons, our Koalatacular, our $5 and $10 a month tier patrons get the opportunity to ask us questions for Quality Time, and we choose one and we ask them at the end. I'm scrolling through it. I'm not going to see it, so we can answer his other one. Boom. Okay. So Dash asked, should video game bosses be revealed right away or be introduced later on? So I asked him, do you mean like you introduce them narratively and then, you see them and then later they show up and you fight them kind of a thing? Or is it like from a gameplay perspective that somehow you fight them in some reduced capacity initially and then you fight a big boy fight later? And he said, I would think narratively, one game where a boss was introduced early on is Pokemon White and Black. Not familiar with that one. One where it's revealed at the end of the game or towards the end is Astral Chain, and a game where they were introduced but not available to fight is Legend of Zelda.
Cool.
Just about any Legend of Zelda. And actually, that was like the first place my head went to was Zelda. Because I feel like you run into Ganondorf, at least I'm thinking of Ocarina of Time at this point. I feel like I fought him a couple of times.
I mean, this is the Nintendo classic, honestly. Like, most Nintendo games do this, right? Like, in Mario, you see Bowser early in the game almost always. Right. This is just a Nintendo thing. And I think that might be more because those games, like, you already know. They're so well known that the villain is sort of already known to the players. So they don't feel like they need this element of surprise. But I feel like there's a lot of games where the villain, like the classic twist is, right, like that you find out at the end of the game that the good guy you've been working with is the bad guy and shit like that, right?
Right.
For me,
No, right. So yeah, right.
I think for me, I prefer. I think that it's cool to introduce some level of like bad guy early in the game. Just some evil. You want to know what you're fighting against, sort of. I guess if we're talking about a relatively like black and white concept of like good and evil in a game or whatever, right? You want to know like what that evil is, but maybe you don't know very many details, and then over the course of the game you really find out more details, and maybe new evils get added or like things get rolled into that. But I prefer things to be more nebulous, and then you like figure shit out as you go through the game and really can like piece the narrative together as you go. Whereas I think in most Mario, like sort of Mario, for example, the narrative is very simple, right? They're always Nintendo games in general are very simple narrative style games. Where it's just like, yeah, there's a bad guy, you got to fight him. Yeah, maybe some stuff is different about how you get there, but it's the bad guy, you know.
Right. Yeah. I'm a little torn, and maybe my answer is that I like both kinds of ways, in the sense of, if you have, I think introducing the boss early on, having some encounter, maybe not like completely defeating him, but he escapes, comes back later, blah blah blah, creates this like attachment almost to the conflict that maybe grows. Like I've played games that I cannot remember right now, but like that oh fuck dude, like Ori, where like you are in Ori, the owl comes at you and you avoid it, you don't defeat the owl. I can't remember the name of the owl, but this happens a few times before the final finale kind of a thing, and I feel like it created a not just narrative tension. Yeah, I guess a little bit just narrative. I was thinking maybe gameplay too, but
narrative tension, but
a narrative tension there that was compelling and kind of made me interested in like how things are going to develop.
I feel like in a story like Ori, a relatively simple but like unique story, that kind of stuff works really well, and I think it did work really well in Ori. But I think in some games it can feel a little tropey, where it's like, oh yeah, I have all my powers. I fight the bad guy. He takes all my powers. Now I play the game getting my powers back to fight bad guy again, right? Like that is such a trope at this point that it can feel a little cheesy if it's not executed very well, I feel like.
Yeah, and you're saying that, and in the Destiny 2 campaign, that's kind of exactly what happens. You start the game, the Cabal, I think is their name, show up, they beat the fuck out of all the Guardians, and you lose all your powers. And there is actually a really powerful, I really liked it, well done initial sequence of you reclaiming, if you will, your first chunk of your powers back, if you will. And that was actually done to great narrative effect, in my opinion. But I do get what you're saying. It's sometimes it just makes things really predictable, I guess.
Exactly.
Now, I don't think that Destiny 2 was going for earth-shattering, breaking kind of a narrative delivery. They were just going for a solid thing, and I did generally find it pleasing. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. How it can feel kind of generic, kind of tropey.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a good answer. So where can people find us?
You can find us at kokoalaentertainment.com. There we have links to all of our social media, especially Discord, which I know we say this all the time because it's true. God, I'm telling you, in the future, there could be a reality where those who have worked hard in the Discord playing a game, which if you don't know, you should know. We have an idle game with Agora and Parthenon that ties into the universe of our upcoming game. You can research, you gain points, you get lore rewards, you enter into giveaways automatically at certain levels, you get more entries. But if you guys could see the future, I think there's legitimately significant upside into participating and participating, but like kicking ass on this game. That's all I can say for now. And big things are coming soon this summer.
Soon TM.
So yes, we do giveaways every 3 weeks on Instagram and on Discord. So if nothing else, if you're hearing this for the first time, come join us for some free stuff. Shout out to all our patrons.
Woo.
Thank you so much. Especially recently, you guys have helped us plow through our first goal of helping cover our studio expenses. So amazing. Thank you guys so much. Really cannot communicate.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Right on. Thank you.
You really
for
can't
listening.
communicate it.
I really
as you
can't.
did-
I'm
as
so
you
blown away.
demonstrated.
I'm so blown away by your generosity. I really can't.
It is crazy.
Next
that
week,
we're- yeah.
next week, for those who are listening, we will have Kira from EGD. Nailed it. CEO of EGD. She's got a really cool like origin story into that. Quite frankly, I'm very excited to hear how anybody, but especially her with her circumstances and her interests, because she was really interested in audio and stuff. So not really like being a CEO of some underground game design club. How she was able to execute that and then continue executing.
And
so that
you know
should
what
be
else
good.
we'll get her thoughts on? E3
Josh.
conferences.
Oh, that's true.
Because they're that weekend.
True.
I mean, we'll probably do a special podcast just on E3, but we'll definitely ask Kira some E3 questions, those burning E3 questions.
No, yeah, we'll ask her. That'll be fresh off Microsoft's June 13th, so we'll be able to ask her some stuff about that one and a few others that happened before the podcast. Then the week after, we'll have an E3 coverage where after everybody gets their stuff out. But yeah, also for those who are listening next week, because we have a guest, we like to welcome our guests with a party. We will have giveaways in stream.
All right.
Amazing.
Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Let's go.
Talk to you next week.
Hasta la vista.
Bye.
Bye.